Hey everyone, just want to let you know the episode you're about to listen to, I had Steve Lonnen on, the creator of FlatBill Friday, real estate agent here in Charlotte. We talked about his brand, the purpose of it, the mission, what's important about it, what he's trying to accomplish with it. We also talked about real estate in Charlotte, who Steve is, his background, the nature of real estate in the Charlotte market, and just a couple other topics that I think you guys will enjoy. So hope you enjoy this episode. As always, if you're listening on Apple, make sure you rate it. If you are listening anywhere, take a screenshot, put it on your Instagram, tag me in the story, let me know you're listening, where you're listening from. I appreciate all the support, and I know Steve does as well. So hope you enjoy this episode, and here we go. Welcome to 2 Cents Worth. I'm your host, Ryan DeFaber. I'm here with the creator of FlatBill Friday, Mr. Steve Lonnen. We are going to get into what FlatBill Friday is. Steve, realtor, entrepreneur, creator, father, husband. Did I cover everything?
All the above. And I think a good citizen.
A good citizen.
That's important, right?
I mean, sure. I would think so. I mean, you don't want to be a bad citizen.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's start off with, because people are going to want to understand this, what is FlatBill Friday?
Yeah, absolutely. So really it's a mashup of two things, and it represents essentially a mindset, a way of living. And so prior to my real estate career, I spent close to 14 years with some incredible organizations. And one of the things I learned along the way was just how important working hard and getting great results are, but doing it in a way where it could be repeatable. And so as I progressed through the ranks and developed into leadership positions, I realized that my teams, including myself, we were leaving every Friday. And when we walked out the door, we knew we had a great week, a good week, or essentially a bad week.
Yeah.
And so that gauge, that Friday, kind of allowed us to know, if I had a great week, how do I repeat that and do that again the next week? If I didn't, what steps do I need to do differently to correct that? Friday also is a kind of a unique day, and for most people in the business world, where a lot of the projects, the deadlines, the quotas, all of those things are due on a Friday, which again allow us to know, did we have a good week, a great week, or a bad week? So, and then you compound that with, in a lot of environments, it's a more casual day.
Yeah.
Right. And so whether it's jeans or just a more casual atmosphere, or a half day Friday or something along those lines. So really, there was a huge emphasis for me when I was leading my teams on, when we would come in on a Friday, let's work hard. Let's hit those goals. Let's hit those quotas. Let's meet those project deadlines. Let's do it in a fun, authentic way where we're getting results. So then when we walk out the door on Friday, we know we had a great week.
Yeah.
So that's the Friday component. And then realistically, and then the flat bill is I just believe the authenticity piece is so important. And so for me, I've always wore a flat bill style hat. Mm-hmm. And so really which
is very popular now.
Yeah. Especially the 12 to 14-year-old boy. Yeah. Hugely popular.
That's the demographic you're going for? Yeah. 12 to 14-year-old boys?
Oh boy.
No. I'm
going to get in trouble with Disney.
No.
No. But so that's just my style. And so if you combine the idea of authenticity, which is what I really want the flat bill to represent, and then the idea of just inspiring yourself and other people to great results and impacting people through those results, when you put those two things together, that's where Flat Bill Friday came from. And
you do quite a bit of videos on Instagram and Facebook. At FlatBill_Friday is your Instagram.
Correct, yeah.
FlatBill Friday is your Facebook, so people can go there. And it's not, I said realtor, but a lot of them aren't around real estate, it's more so just like motivation for the week. And again, like you said, Friday is that day about how to, kind of close out your week and then go through the weekend and get your week started, right?
Sure. And so my goal is wherever I find I've been impacted, I typically want to share that. So sometimes it could be real estate related in terms of how somebody, maybe if somebody's trying to make a decision on what to do, some different ways to think about it, some different tools they have access to. But for the most part, you're right. It's not real estate specific. That's intentional because the reality is 99.9% of the time, people aren't buying or selling a home, right?
Yeah.
So like, my goal is to meet people where they're at, and if I can make an impact with where they're at, that's my goal with FlatBill Friday.
So, what starting a brand, and I think brand has always been around, but I think now in the day of social media, brand is just much more out there, and like everybody talks about. You got to have a brand. You build your brand. What is your brand? And right before we started recording downstairs, you told my son you're basically creating your own brand every day, whether you know it or not. What's been the hardest thing for you in starting this brand? Because and I have a picture, and everyone will see it on my Instagram if you haven't already. But established 2017, so you're into full year 2, right?
Yeah.
What's been the hardest challenge for you of building a brand?
I think it's probably the hardest thing with anything. It's patience.
Yep.
Right. So there's a lot of ways that you can grow something inorganically. But for this brand and for me and for everything that I'm about, that would be unauthentic.
Yeah.
So against one of the key pillars of what I believe in. So, patience, I believe, is probably, the biggest thing. And then, we're in a day and age where, out of sight, out of mind, and so you have to stay disciplined and committed to the brand.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of, there are days and weeks and times where it doesn't always feel, I wouldn't say comfortable, but you're tired, right?
Yeah, right.
That consistency piece is so important, where if you do it, one day and then you decide I don't feel like doing it for a month, and then you try to do it, that inconsistency is not going to create any sort of loyalty, and because you're not being loyal to your
Right.
brands, right? So I would say just the patience and the consistency piece, because when I do bring something to the table, I want it to be something of value, mm-hmm. and I want it to be something that hopefully impacts at least one person. So I want to be thoughtful about that, and I don't want to just haphazardly shoot a video and throw it up there and say, I did it for the week. I want to have some more substance behind it.
So you're touching on it, so I want to just kind of get it out there. So what is the mission for FlatBill Friday? What is your overall goal for this?
There are 3 pillars to FlatBill Friday that I want to impact people with, and it's inspire, impact, and authenticity. I want to hopefully engage people in a way where because these are all things, those 3 things we all can control. And believe it or not, even in my life, and sometimes even still today, like you allow something else to control those things.
Yeah.
We all have the ability to inspire somebody or to let somebody inspire us. We all have the ability to impact others or let somebody impact us. And we all absolutely have the ability to be authentic to who we are. And unfortunately, we live in a world where we let society dictate how we show up versus allowing ourselves to dictate how we show up. And so people ask me, are you trying to monetize this? Are you trying to do? Quite honestly, I not at this point. What I want to do is I want to create a positive brand. And if there's opportunities from a business perspective down the road, of course I'm going to look at stuff like that. But really, it's, can we get people to engage around those 3 core pillars? And if so, what sort of movement or opportunity will present itself from there? So
that's what I get reached out quite a bit about this podcast as well. And like, do you want us to help advertise for you and get a bigger reach and everything? And personally, if anyone's listened to all of them, the whole reason why I did this is basically just as an outlet, something creative, get people over the house, people who have got good conversations, people I might know, people I might not know. Mm-hmm. If it leads to that, cool, but that's not the point of it. It's more so to just have a good conversation and tell a story. But it is always interesting because you do especially when it comes to a personal brand, the first question out of everyone's mouth is, well, what are you trying to accomplish with it? Are you going to try and make this your full-time job, or are you going to try and make some money out of it? But I think that's, look, organically, if it leads to that, I think that's great for all parties, right? For yours and for mine. If not, at least you're still doing something you believe in, right? Like inspiring and being authentic about it.
Absolutely. And I think what's so cool is the fact that we have all these mediums through video, through podcasts, through social, and through the internet, that literally you're creating a legacy through this stuff. And so if for nothing else, when I'm gone, my kids see, I don't know, probably by the time I'm gone, God willing, hundreds, thousands of different videos and me applying myself and putting myself out there and maybe being a little bit vulnerable and taking risks. If for nothing else, they see that and they have something that they can look back on and then they can share with their children and their children's children, then it would have all been worth it. So, there is a business component too. I'm in real estate, right?
Yeah.
So here's the deal. People work with those people that they know, like, and trust. And so if I can be genuine and authentic, and put myself out there consistently, people will start to know me, even if we've never personally met. And then those people that start to know me, a certain percentage of those will like me, certain percentage won't, which that's life, right?
Yeah.
And then through that, you start to create trust. And so, if they come to a point in time where maybe they have to make an important decision about their home and they think of me, then that's the way the world works. But I'm not going to jam it down anybody's throat.
Yeah. So you've hit on three things so far that I want to kind of just circle back to: is not letting the world dictate you as an individual. 2, being vulnerable. And 3, how basically those two build trust with others, right? So, I talk about it a lot on here when I do just by myself, or even when I have guests on, I will talk about, when you come on this show, the best thing to do is to be vulnerable, because if you're not vulnerable and you're not willing to open up, people can see that. Or hear it. In this instance, hear it.
For sure.
For yours, they can see it. If you do a video and it's not authentic, or you're not being vulnerable, or you're not being honest, plenty of people can see that. So you're not creating that trust. People can look at it and there's plenty of people on social media you can look at today and go, totally fake.
For sure. Yeah.
Definitely don't want to utilize them, or no way I trust them. And a lot of that also, when you get into situations like I think both of us are in, where I'm sticking a microphone in front of my face every week, you're putting your face out there much more than I do. I don't do a lot of videos. It's more of this, because that's just more of what I'm comfortable doing. I don't mind having a conversation in front of a microphone, putting myself on the camera, here and there. You're more, that's more of your style, right?
Sure.
But the number one thing to do when you have that is not care what other people think, right? Because there are going to be people that are going to sit here and listen to this and go, bullshit. He's full of shit.
Yep.
And there's going to be other people that are going to go, I think that's great. He's got a lot of freedom for the fact that he doesn't really care what other people think.
Yeah.
And I think once you have that mindset, and the fact that you're showing that to your kids, and as well as, for me, my kids, that's very freeing for yourself as an individual and those around you to say, what Steve's doing, that's Steve. There's no hiding it. There's no persona that's FlatBill Friday Steve and then Steve, right?
Yep.
There's no two different personalities. For me, there's no, well, this is Ryan on 2 cents worth, and then there's Ryan in real life. It's the same thing. It's, so you said those three things. I wanted to touch on it because I do see that in you, and especially for you being an entrepreneur and for your business. Like, it is important that if I was to use you as a realtor or go into business with you, or put something in your hands, I would want the person that I'm seeing that I might not have known, and I saw it on social media, and go, that's the person I want. And then if I meet you in person and it's different, I'd be like, whoa, I've just been completely lied to.
Correct.
So I think that's really important for authenticity, which I think is great, which I'm looking at a how big is this? 4x8?
Yeah, I believe
A 4x8 card that Steve gave me. Basically, it's a whole description of FlatBill Friday and the whole purpose of it and everything. And again, inspire, impact through authenticity. So I think that's great. Now, there is one thing on here I do want to touch on because I saw it, and then we're going to get into some other stuff about you. But what is Madeline's Fund? I've seen that, and I see when you've put on Instagram, when you sell a house, you have people holding a pink ribbon. What is Madeline's Fund?
Well, thank you for asking. I didn't know if you would do that or not, and I'm super happy to share. So, giving back is super important to me. It's just the right thing to do. And so, when I got into real estate, we're blessed to help people either find or sell a home, and we're compensated accordingly. And so my thought was I need to give back in some way, shape, or form. And when I was starting off, I was trying to figure out, well, who am I going to give back to? There's there's a million different ways that you can, and there's a lot of very, very important causes and needs. Well, I was introduced to Madeline's Fund through my brother and sister-in-law whose son was born prematurely and had an extended stay in the NICU. And so through their experience and friends, we were introduced to Madeline's Fund. And I've been able to go to a couple of their galas and their charity golf events, and hearing their story and understanding what they support. And the authenticity and the genuineness behind it, and the local flair or flavor, because they are from Charlotte, I got on board. So essentially what Madeline's Fund does is they support families of children that are in the NICU, and they were a family specifically impacted by it. So Andy and Rachel Lee, they lost their daughter Madeline after 8 days in the NICU, and so and Andy's a professional football player and played with the Panthers. He's now with the Cardinals, and they started going through all these the bills and the different expenses, and they were fortunate to be able to take care of what they had to, but they realized, man, this is a lot. Can you imagine how many people are negatively impacted by just the expense of a child being in the NICU, much less, in a lot of cases, the funeral costs. Yeah, right. So they started this foundation a couple years ago to honor Madeline and to support those families of kids that are in the NICU. And these funds go from anything to diapers, to pack and plays, to car seats, to hotels, to meals, and all the way up into funeral expenses.
And so it's madelensfund.org. It's MADELYNS fund.org, or at Madeline's Fund. You can see it, but I saw that on here, and I saw it on your pictures on Instagram of everybody that you've been selling homes to. Yeah, you have them hold the ribbon, which I think is cool because it's a good, just a reminder. Yeah, because as parents, when you say that obviously that's tough. You have two kids, I have two kids, but the fact that your brother and sister-in-law went through that, I mean, that's obviously affects you directly as a family member.
My own nephew, he spent 2 months in the NICU. My sister had him prematurely, and so it's just a way to give back. And so at every closing, whether somebody buys or they sell, I make a donation on their behalf to the fund.
Oh, nice.
And it's just, like I said, it's an organization I'm proud to support.
Oh, cool. Well, anything else for Madeline's Fund?
You gave out the website.
Okay.
You can also follow them on Instagram. And like I said, they're a great group of people. And if you want to learn more, there's a really cool video on their website where Andy and Rachel explain in more detail about the organization.
And then also for your website, I just noticed that I didn't see it on top. Sorry. FlatBillFriday.com.
Yep.
Now, what can people see there?
So I do, like you said, a lot of the videos. So you're going to primarily
the videos
see,
are on there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'm on, if you want to just see the videos, I've got a YouTube channel, FlatBill Friday as well.
Okay. Yeah. Can people get merchandise? So Steve brought me a nice hat that I get to wear now.
So here's the deal. I believe in the law of reciprocity.
Okay.
Right? So I ordered 300 hats when I got started, and I have not charged a dime for one of them, and I give them away, whether it's an event that I'm doing, or something like this, or people hit me up on Facebook. I actually had a police officer up in Kannapolis. He saw a bunch of my stuff on Facebook, and he was like, "Hey man, love what you're doing, so on and so forth. Would love a hat." And I actually sent him, I think 5 or 6 to give out to the rest of his team.
Yeah, see, you're smart, getting in with the law.
Yeah, never know when you'll need them.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. So, all right,
Yeah.
so I'm not going to say it. I was going to say, if you want a free hat, just hit Steve up and he'll give it to you for free.
Yeah, I'm all about engaging.
That's terrible. All right, so anything else you want to touch on for FlatBill? I think we'll come back to it a couple times in conversation.
The only thing I would say is, so it's a flat bill hat, and people are like, "Oh, I don't wear flat bills. I don't look good in flat bill." I don't care if you wear it backwards, forwards, you bend the hat, make it look like a TP, whatever. I don't care if you cut the bill off. It's not about whether
if someone cuts the bill off of a hat.
Whatever. I don't. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not about whether the bill is flat or not. It's about the mindset. It's about the really just the mindset of how to approach, in my opinion, a great way to approach life, people, and hopefully yourself.
It's a mindset, the message, and just the overall brand in itself, like the experience of it, right? So like, the minute you said that I could bend the brim, I started bending the brim.
Go for it, man.
Yeah, I don't need a lot of bend, but the flatness with the way that my head is, it would make my head look
and
normal.
So,
yours is very fitting. I could, before I even looked in the mirror, I could feel it with the flat. Where I was like, man, I'm gonna have to fix this brim before I start breaking this thing in.
That's exactly it. That's the number one thing. I'm like, I do not care what you do with that.
Yeah, I like the idea though of you calling out like the day, right? Because it could have been, you could have created your own brand of something around, a flat bill or whatever. But like the calling out of the day and everything, and then like the association to Friday being more of like a casual day. So like, here's a hat, and I think that's kind of cool, because more and more in just, the industry as a whole in business, Fridays and companies in general are becoming much more laxed in what to wear. It's more about the production of the resource,
right?
Especially in the world that you used to be in, and that I'm still in the technology world. Like, long are the days of everyone has to be in a suit.
Right.
Those are long gone.
Right.
Now it's like you go into, I support a large financial institution. You go into that large financial institution on a Tuesday and people are walking around in t-shirts and jeans. You're like, okay.
Right.
All right, this is a little different, but it is kind of that mindset now in the business world too. So, personally and professionally.
And the irony is Friday, like I said earlier, is, I would argue, probably the most important day of the work week.
Yeah.
So it's the confluence of the fact that things are a little bit more casual, but yet it's so critically important to meet those results and hit those deadlines and get those projects complete. And so to me, it's just, I think it's a perfect marriage of, like, you're casual, but you have to get great results, and that's, to me, where I think that's the beauty in it.
I like, because so many people you see out there, they look at Friday as more of like, okay, just get me into the weekend, like get this day over with. And then there's so much stuff out there also of like, people fear Monday. Well, no, you need to attack Monday. Mm-hmm. So you have these two basically bookends of a week, your Monday and your Friday. And I like your perspective on Friday compared to a lot of everybody else's, a lot of other people's perspective of Friday of, all right, this is it. Just get me through this day, and then I can have my weekend. Where yours is, no, attack this Friday, finish it strong, and that will help you into your weekend, and then also into your next week. Yeah. Where a lot of people focus in on Monday. Don't dread Monday. Go attack Monday. I like your mindset of, don't look at Friday as like, okay, I'm almost there. Look at it as like, yeah, I'm almost there, but finish strong.
Yeah, because if you leave Friday dreading the fact that, if you leave Friday not feeling accomplished, well, of course, what are you going to feel on Monday? Yeah. It's like you're like, I've got to dig out of a hole that I left myself 2 days ago, right? So Yeah. So not to beat a dead horse, but yeah, that's to me. It's just like that's where the mindset, the mantra, the spirit of it comes from.
Okay. I want to I want to talk about real estate because where we live in Charlotte,
Yes.
obviously some stuff has come out over the last 2 days. I do want to understand that from your perspective as a realtor, and how you got into real estate and what drives you. But before we get there, we've spoken about Flat Bill Friday, all of these things. We never touched on who's Steve. For the listener,
Yeah.
who is Steve Lonnen?
Oh man.
Where'd you grow up? What do you do for fun? Like who are you?
Somebody asked me that like a couple months ago, and the first thing that popped in my mind is, I'm just a dude from a small town trying to do some cool shit. Like that's literally.
I like that.
That's literally what I told him. And the guy was like, and he just laughed, and it was like, that's legitimately how I feel, right?
Yeah.
So, originally born and raised in Rochester, New York. Family of 6, so 3 boys and 3 girls. Oof. All 2 years apart. I was the second oldest. We were literally the Brady Bunch. If you think about, like, it was girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, 2 years apart. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
right.
As you can imagine, never a dull moment.
Yeah.
Super active kid, pretty good student. Not because I was, the first person in the library and the last person out, but just because I just figured out a way to learn, I guess.
Yeah.
But I love sports. Grew, as a young kid playing outside, neighborhood. I had just baseball, soccer, football, basketball, whatever you put in front of me, I wanted to play. And I think through that, I don't know if it's innate or just through those experiences, I just became pretty hyper competitive, and not in a way where I would undercut people, but just, I mean, if I lost a game of horse, it would just like stick with me, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And I'm not even that good at basketball, but but yeah, so grew up in Rochester, and I was pretty good at soccer, so I had an opportunity to play at a lot of different places, and most of the opportunities I was getting were close to home in New York, and I just really felt like I wanted to give it a shot, and so I picked a couple schools, and this was back before wasn't before the internet, but it was before.
Yeah, it's definitely not before the internet. You're
not
old.
not before the internet, but it was. This was before. I mean, it wasn't like scouting as today, where
right.
You had a couple show tournaments and stuff like that, but for more or less everything was pretty regional, unless you were just like.
Unless you were on either like a travel team or
right.
like you said, you went to some big tournaments that brought in teams from all over the country.
Yeah,
I'm right there with you.
So I did the club thing and all that, but anyway, so I picked about 20 schools, and I sent them tapes.
Okay.
So it was crazy. Like I'd have to get in touch with a sports information guy or the athletic department at all these different schools. And I got all these different tapes, and I sent them to all these schools, and then I try to schedule meetings with coaches off of those tapes, and I got 4 meetings, and we ended up going to 3 of them, and that's how I ended up going to so I went to Campbell University. I had to walk on, no scholarship, but walked on, and that's essentially where I went to school.
Campbell, for those of you listening. East of Raleigh.
Yeah, so it's in between
Southeast?
Raleigh and Fayetteville.
Okay, so it's like southeast of Raleigh.
Yep.
Division 1.
Yep.
How big is it? How big is it when you went there? Because
there's about 5,000 students. When I went there.
So I mean, a decent sized school, but kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Oh my goodness! Understatement of the day.
Between Raleigh and Fayetteville, there's a whole lot of nothing. What were the other schools?
I went to Wingate, actually.
That's where I went.
Yeah, and University of Tampa.
Okay, wow. So you were all over.
Yeah, I felt like I wanted to be in the South, and that's primarily who I I guess applied to.
Yeah,
and those were the 3 that I.
Wingate won the national championship last year.
I know they're good, and they had a really good.
Not
program.
that you missed anything, because we've been graduated a long time, but they same coach that was there when I was there.
So came down to Wingate and Campbell for me, and I really liked Wingate a lot. And at the time, they were a top 10 D2 school, and they've always had a really good program. And ultimately, I think the swaying thing, my original idea was to go pre-law, and Campbell has
they have a really good,
exceptional law school.
Yeah.
And so he had that, and then so that was one thing, and then the other thing was just if I was going to go for it, like D1, I looked at their schedule, and Campbell was playing,
yeah.
Duke and Carolina and Clemson, and and so I was like, well,
you mean you didn't want to play UNC Pembroke and Belmont Abbey?
We did in the spring.
Yeah, it's like a warm-up game.
Our spring games were against those guys. But the crazy thing about soccer is, I mean, you can get incredible talent at any level in collegiate sports. And just it's just.
I think in collegiate sports in general, like you look now in like the NFL. I mean, there's guys D3, making it and a decent career in the NFL, 3-4 years, make a decent impact, a good paycheck. Baseball, the same thing. When I was at Wingate, there was a couple guys that got drafted out of my class, and has been basically since then. A lot of Division II guys as well. So, look, there's so much talent out there now because of just how we approach sports in general as youth. I don't know if you're facing this with your kids. They're about my kids' age, but we're going to start seeing as we get them into more sports, which I hate, and I'm going to try and avoid it as all possible, is, well, you need to, they're really good at this one sport. Have them only do that. And I grew up playing multiple sports, and eventually it trickled itself out to, by my junior year of high school, I focused solely on one sport, and that's became the sport that I wanted to play, which is baseball. Where now it's like kids like at 6-7 years old, it's like, all right, you got to play this one sport because you're really good at it. So, and this is all you do. My word of advice is don't let your kids do that.
I completely agree. I don't think that the specialization. I mean, if you really love baseball and you need to learn how to hit a curveball, you probably need to spend, more time learning how to hit the. But that doesn't mean you only do that. Yep. And I completely agree with you. I think there's a lot of people that perform at a very, very, very high level that are also pretty darn good at other sports.
Yeah.
Like Kobe Bryant grew up in Italy, and he can play. He can play
soccer player. Yeah.
Steve Nash is another guy. Steve Nash could have played professional soccer.
He announces soccer games now on Fox.
Yeah, I actually, when I was up in Rochester, I did my internship with the Rhinos, and his brother Martin Nash was on the Rhinos team.
That was funny. So it was a conversation downstairs. Steve was having with my wife. My wife and Steve actually both worked for the Rochester Rhinos at different times, but of all the sports teams in America, my wife's not from Rochester. Yeah. She's from Florida, and her family's from up there, and they did an internship there. Or did you work there, or she did an internship?
I did an summer internship.
Okay, so same thing, right? And the Rhinos are minor league soccer? What would you attribute them to, like a baseball?
AAA.
AAA. Okay, yeah. So they're one step below your MLS soccer team. Okay.
Yeah. It was crazy because when they started, and the MLS was kind of starting as well, and was not anywhere near what it is today, the Rhinos were getting better players and better attendance. We were averaging 13,000, 14,000 fans.
Isn't that crazy?
Game. Yeah.
You find those little hotbeds, those little some of those cities, like Columbus, Ohio.
Yep.
Huge soccer fans. Portland, Oregon has set the record for how many consecutive sold out soccer games. Mm-hmm. It's like you think like Portland's really that big into soccer, but the Northwest is huge into soccer.
Big time. Yep.
Like I mentioned, Columbus, Atlanta, of all places, Atlanta won the MLS this year and play in the same stadium that the Falcons play in. That's a 70,000 seat stadium, and they sell it out.
Yeah, I know.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I remember growing up. I grew up in Rhode Island. We had the New England Revolution.
Yep.
Which is still around, but they played in Patriot Stadium, and there'd be nobody there.
Yep.
And there's still nobody.
Everybody got to sit in the lower bowl.
Yeah, like it's only the lower bowl, and it's like the first half of the lower bowl where everyone sits. Yeah. So we'll stick with soccer. Do you follow soccer still?
I do. Yes. Yeah.
Do you root for anybody?
Mostly Liverpool's the team I root for.
See, so I had Fielding on.
Yeah.
Steve Fielding, British Steve. He's a Tottenham fan. You're Liverpool. I'm a Man United fan.
Okay.
So once this interview is over, you're just going to leave because it's that big of a rivalry. You guys are good this year.
I know.
First place.
I just love Klopp. I love, and you know, my favorite player of all time is Steven Gerrard. And it's just, he played in the middle.
A legend.
He's tough as nails. He saw the heights of soccer success, and he also experienced just some gutting moments. But he's...
it's been 30 years since you've won a trophy.
Right. But he was there when... and
Not to be an asshole, but...
Yeah, no. But I don't have such an allegiance to them necessarily, or in a lot of sports, I don't have a, like... To where
you're not a diehard in anything.
To where I can't I'm to where I can't respect like just what other teams do. Like Tottenham, for example. I mean, they struggled for years and years and years, right? And you just find that right mixture of leadership and talent, and ultimately you establish a new culture, and then look at, they're at the top of the table week in and week out.
A team notoriously known for not spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of homegrown talent that they have. Harry Kane came up through their academy and everything. He's one of the best strikers in the world now.
And I think Leicester City a couple years ago, right? That story is...
I think Steve and I talked about that on here.
Did you guys?
I can't remember half the time because I do drink during this. So there are times where I'll drink on here and then I'll upload it and forget everything we talked about. So I did one with my father-in-law a couple weeks ago, and I just got done driving 10 hours to his house and downed a whole 6-pack of Voodoo Ranger IPA. And my wife listened to it the other day. She's like, you sounded pretty drunk. I was like, oops.
Oh, well.
Don't remember half of it. But I think Steve and I did talk about Leicester and just how like it was like this perfect storm that just everything came together, and he talked about just the team aspect of it. Like everyone did exactly what they were supposed to do every single game. They met the game plan and took guys that normally aren't the most talented, but when you put them together as a team, they were unstoppable.
They're incredible.
It was the craziest thing because since then they've basically finished mid of the league. You know, 8, 9, 7.
Which actually is an accomplishment for them because they were always on relegation lines every year.
Because it was before they won. They'd only been up in the Premier League like 2 or 3 years at that point because they were down in the lower league.
Yep,
it's crazy. Yep. All right, so Liverpool. They're good. I don't know what's worse, them winning or Man City winning the league, because it's basically going to come down to those two teams right now.
No Man City. They've done that.
I'm sick of it.
Yeah.
I just looked at the score for the Duke game. We're up 14. Watching Duke and Georgia Tech in the background because it's Saturday. All right, so let's talk about real estate.
Yeah.
What got you into real estate?
Well, a couple things. So first of all, I knew if I was going to leave the corporate world, I spent 14 years with essentially the same organization, two sister companies between the two, but
where I still work.
Right, correct. And so I knew, and
don't worry, no one's listening.
Yeah. I knew if I was going to leave the security, in quite honestly, I mean, I progressed pretty nicely through the ranks and got some nice exposure and nice opportunities. And I always go back to one comment. So I was doing my taxes a couple years ago when I was still there, and it recently just gotten a new leadership promotion, and my accountant looks at me and goes, "Oh, they slapped the golden handcuffs on you." And we were laughing about it and blah blah blah. And then a couple hours later, I was thinking about it, and that comment has still to this day never left me. The idea of being confounded by something like that, which there's pros and cons, right? Like there's a lot of great reasons to let the golden handcuffs stay on. And so, anyways, getting into real estate, I just knew like if I was going to leave something that was that secure and that meant that much to my family, and quite honestly, something I could have had a 20, 30-year career in, I had to do something that I felt like I could be really good at. And real estate is one of those things I was always very active in as a consumer, as a buyer, a seller, an investor. I've built homes, I've renovated homes.
Okay.
And so I knew enough to be dangerous without actually being in the game. But I think what I really knew is all those feelings that people go through every one of those transactions, because I had been through so many of them myself. So you understand like the uncertainty, the sleepless nights. I wonder if they're going to accept my offer.
The emotional highs and lows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So not only did I feel like I had a good understanding of the IQ piece, I felt like I had a really good. I was grounded on the EQ piece of it. So I was like, I think I can have some success here. The other thing was the firm I'm with, Costello Real Estate and Investments. John and Natalie are some of my best friends, and so John's story is pretty similar to myself in terms of we both came through the organization together. He had a lot of success, and basically, as a top performer in the company, decided I'm gonna build my own company. And when you talk about being when everybody's patting you on the back and the bank account, the coffers are just filling up, and you just cold turkey leave that, like that takes a lot of guts, right? And so I remember thinking about him 4.5, 5 years ago, probably like a lot of people are thinking about me today. We're like, why would you leave? Nuts? Why would you do that? And so they're some of my best friends, and I've seen them build a company and do it the right way, do it through not skipping steps, not putting the customer first, putting the agent first, and creating a culture. And they purposely didn't grow the company for 2 to 3 years because they wanted to bring the company to market and aggressively start recruiting and bringing people in when they felt the company was ready. And they knew they had to get through some growing pains. And it's things like, just different accounting systems and softwares and processes and things of that nature. So they wanted to be not fully vetted, but pretty close to fully vetted through that. So when they came to market and really started to build the company, they had the answers to a lot of the questions, and those answers were above industry standards. So
how big is the company?
So it's close to 5-year-old company. We have about 140 agents in Charlotte.
Whew.
We have close to 20 agents in Raleigh. We have our brick and mortar. We're in South End. We have a 6,000 square foot space up there. Yeah. We have brick and mortar in Fort Mill as well.
Okay.
And then we have brick and mortar up in Raleigh.
Are you licensed North and South Carolina?
Yeah.
I have to imagine, right? We're so close to the South Carolina border.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, my house right here, we're a mile from the border.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I always ask of realtors because it's interesting with where Charlotte's located. You have to like we just say we're the Carolinas basically half the time because there's so many people that live in South Carolina that commute into Charlotte. But I always do ask because if anyone is looking to buy or sell a house, Steve can represent you in North and South Carolina.
I can.
Yeah,
I absolutely can do that.
All right, so 104. Can you give a comparison of 140 people? What kind of size is that compared to other real estate companies? Is that relatively small, or is that medium size, or a large organization?
Well, so most of your big names are franchised out, right? So Keller Williams is the largest real estate company in the world. But, you hear other names like a RE/MAX or Century 21 or Allen Tate, I guess, is local.
I was going to say, think about Allen Tate or Wilkinson.
Yeah, so we're still behind them in terms of numbers, but the percentage of growth over time by producer it's pretty much not heard of.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. It's pretty impressive.
Like when you said they only 5 years old, I was waiting for you to be we got 20 sellers, 140 just here.
Yes.
Yeah. And then would you say another 20?
About 20
in Raleigh?
Yeah.
Okay. What in the Charlotte market, because I used to be in commercial construction, and when I was in commercial construction was the downturn of the economy. And we were, from what we saw, because we had offices basically up and down the East Coast, Charlotte was the one, it was kind of in this bubble, right? It got hit because of obviously the financial institutions here in Charlotte drive a lot of work. But from a real estate perspective, we were always on that cusp of never really taking a huge nosedive. So in the real estate market today that you're in, I have to imagine it's super competitive.
For sure.
What's one of the most challenging things for you when it comes to selling and buying in Charlotte?
I think that depends on the clientele, right? So for some people, it's just your buying power. So, if you were to buy a house in Charlotte and you had 300 grand, you almost weren't limited to where you could buy.
Yeah.
Right. Things have changed. Like you're not, if you want a single family home, depending on what your budget is, the location may be dictated by what you can afford versus where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean there aren't diamonds in the rough and good opportunities here and there. But, just in general, I think that's one thing that people have to consider. Quite honestly, I don't think there's a ton of challenges for me as a real estate agent that are different than any other industry. We're a commoditized industry in terms
Right.
of the way people would look at maybe a car dealership or any other service where they can choose whoever they want, right?
Yeah.
So I don't look at that as a challenge, though. I look at that as an opportunity. Like, how can I differentiate myself? How can I bring more value? How can I go above and beyond just a standard transactional realtor? What can I do if I'm sitting in your living room to beyond saying I sold 100 homes,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like that's really important, but what more can I bring to the table? So I think the challenges more lie in a client by client basis and understanding what their goals are and do they have realistic expectations based on those goals.
How do clients find you? Like you as a realtor, because I want to try and use some of this time as well because I think real estate, you see a lot of these shows on TV, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's almost a real estate agent, and that you might think differently because you're actually a real estate agent. But
Yeah.
like I look at it as a real estate agent, you look at what's on TV, the way that Charlotte is, it's almost this glorified position because of how it's portrayed in media and everything. Is you can make so much money doing this and clients just flood your doors. How do clients find you?
Yeah, so that's the biggest misconception out there. So to put things in perspective, in 2007, 2008, as we're in the recession and then coming out of it in 2009, there were about 6,000 real estate agents in the greater Charlotte area. And that's Charlotte and the 9 surrounding counties. Today, there's over 14,000 real estate agents. So in 10 years, the number of agents is more than doubled. And a lot of that is due to the fact that it's glamorized and glorified the way that it is. But what most people don't understand is the attrition rate is through the roof.
I have to imagine it's crazy.
80% of agents aren't agents in 2 years.
Why do you think that is?
Because it's not that easy. People aren't. They're not. It's not like 20 people are knocking on your door every day saying, "I'm looking to buy or sell."
Yeah.
And the other thing too is, as technology evolves, people have access to more information, and they can. I've personally gotten a couple calls where people have already found the home they want to buy. They just need somebody to do the transaction.
Represent them. Yeah.
Yeah. And so. 10 years ago, that wasn't the case, right? It was a much more manual process. So I think, you got some of those things are definitely contributors without a doubt. And then whenever you flood the market with, let's say, 8,000 inexperienced people, man, there's a lot of people that aren't doing good work and create negative industry perceptions, and rightfully so. Consumers become leery, and there's a lot of techniques out there. It's funny because as I was considering the career, I started talking to a lot of people, and then I'd get on YouTube and find out and like what are successful agents doing, and I learned a lot of good stuff, but I actually feel like I learned what not to do. In terms of like my goal isn't to sell somebody into buying or selling a home. Like, people internally are going to figure out when the right time is, and they're going to, sure, I'm going to give them information that's going to help them make their decision, but kind of being the sales guy to say, hey, you really need to do this now, and convince somebody that way. I'm not like, I just believe if you have to pull somebody into something, you're going to have to drag them through, and it's just a painless process for everybody.
Yeah.
So that's just not my approach. But there's a lot of techniques out there by quote unquote top producers that try to teach people how to pull them in. And I think what happens is that just pushes people away.
Right.
So my approach, a lot of it actually comes from my recruiting experience. As a recruiter, the first thing I try to do was actually talk somebody out of a job, because right,
yeah.
I called it reverse recruiting. Because if I can talk you out of the job, that means it's not the right job. If I can put enough hurdles in front of you and you can overcome those hurdles, now we're talking about this being the right job for you.
Yep.
Right. And so I kind of approach real estate the same way. Like, I try to find all the gaps of why it might not be a good idea, because if there are gaps, then, and it's not the right time, I've just built instant credibility and loyalty and trust, because it's in their best interest, not my best interest.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. You get nothing out of it.
I get nothing out of it. Right. In fact, maybe I lost the sale for 6 months or a year.
Yep.
But the other reason is if those gaps are full, we can fill in those gaps. Then it's like, all right, let's go.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I approach the real estate game.
Okay. Because I get magnets in my mailbox.
Yeah.
I get flyers in my mailbox. I get pictures of my house and how much they can sell it
Yep.
for in my mailbox.
Yep.
So it's always interesting to see, because it's a game, right? Like anything that is basically around sales is a game. This was years ago when I first got out of college. I went to this big speaking engagement for the company that I was working for. They sent me there. It was in Charlotte, and I still remember this because you were talking about getting into real estate, and you're not getting flooded with people. It was this guy that works for, I want to say, Remax, and he's out in Arizona, and he's been doing it. He's basically like the number one real estate agent for them. Mm-hmm. This was like 10 years ago. And he talked about how he finally got his first sale, because he kind of entered the real estate game the same way. Like, okay, I'm an agent now, so people would just start calling me. He's like, and no one was calling me, and I wasn't making any sales, and it's commission-based, and I didn't have any money. He went door to door, neighborhood to neighborhood, knocking on people's doors going, do you want to sell your house? And he's like, I heard thousands of no's. And he's like, and I finally got that one yes. And he's like, and that's kind of what jump-started me. Yep. He's like, so there's all different approaches to sales and how you can get clients and everything. Mm-hmm. But I always do laugh, like, if I get a magnet, I'm like, sweet, something else for the refrigerator. I'm like, I'm not going to use you. I have no idea who you are. Right. But at least I got a magnet out of it, and then it's also nice to see what the comps are around our neighborhood, which is always interesting. If you're going to give, and basically you did it, but if there's any other advice that you would give to somebody who's thinking about going into real estate, what would it be?
I think it would be two things. One, what's your plan, right? So, and it's not just in real estate, but I see this so often where things sound cool and they look cool, but like, really, what is your plan? Like, how? And so, what do you need to make a year? Or what's your goal financially or career-wise with real estate? Reverse engineer it down to, does it make sense for me to do this?
Yeah.
And I know I don't know if that's an answer everybody can maybe understand through the podcast, but if you are used to a certain income, or you need a certain income, like, you need to make sure you're willing to do whatever it takes, because it may take knocking door to door. It may take 16 hours a day. It may take those things that aren't comfortable to do that.
Yeah.
Because it's getting your license is not, it's not easy. Like, the test itself, it's not rocket science, but if you don't apply yourself, you won't pass it.
Yeah.
And it takes time and it takes money and all that. So I would really just encourage somebody, like, why do you want to get into it? And what are your goals for it? And then reverse engineer down and say, all right, am I willing to do those things? Because it's not easy. And whatever your strategy is, if it's knocking door to door, if it's buying a bunch of swag and mailing it out, or if it's, cold calling for 3 hours a day, or if it's social media, which happens to be kind of what my strategy is, whatever it is, you just need to know, like, there's no silver bullet. Like, it's going to take time, effort, and all that.
You said it earlier on how you're very competitive.
Yeah.
And you get upset if you lost a game of horse. Does that drive you in real estate? Do you enjoy like the negotiation, like, and then not to say to win, but say you're in a tough negotiation with another realtor, do you enjoy that type of interaction? Is that what drives you, or what drives you in real estate from a competitive perspective?
All right. So there's two things that drive me in real estate. One is I know how positively how much my own personal experiences have fueled me, right? Mm-hmm. So my first house I ever bought was in 2005, before the recession, and I was referred a realtor, and he said, talk to the bank. And so I'm first job out of school. I'm not making very much money at all. And I called the bank, and they said I could go up to $450,000. All right,
I'm glad you said this, because me and my wife went through the same thing, which is also good that I would say we are all educated. Me and you are educated in this, because I'm hoping that you didn't buy a $450,000.
No.
Okay, good.
So I was like, oh my God, I'm going to buy it. Like, I can buy a house in Myers Park in 2005 for $450,000, right? And so I'm like, I just felt like, I was floating on air.
Yeah.
So I tell my realtor that, and he's like, all right. So we start looking. We're not at $450,000 houses, but my budget, I think at that time, was closer to like $150.
Yeah.
For a monthly payment perspective, and but I started sending him these $240,000 houses and $200,000. And so he was patient with me.
Yeah.
And after probably 4 or 5, he's like, Steve, why don't we go back to these 2 houses? And there are these smaller 1,400 square foot ranch homes off Park Road, in kind of by the Quail Corner Shopping Center in South Charlotte area.
Yep.
And lo and behold, I ended up buying one of those houses. And through his guidance, he's just like, I was a single guy, first job, get into a conventional 30-year fixed. Just do the safe thing, do the smart thing. And that's ultimately how. Game's over. So it set me up for. I guess it set me up for life, honestly, and not in terms of getting rich, but it set me up as from an investment perspective, and really understanding how to approach real estate, and like buying what I could afford. And now I still have that home as an investment, and it'll pay for maybe a college education or a wedding.
You have that as an investment property? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And so I saw how that impacted me. And then we were able to do some more stuff. And so, I guess in terms for me getting into real estate, it's the competitive part about it is, how can I help somebody be in a better position because of the transaction we just did? Mm-hmm. And I also really do enjoy the negotiation.
I was going to say, do you enjoy the negotiation?
I do. The only thing I don't enjoy is that I'm negotiating on somebody else's behalf, and I never want to let them down.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm always trying to get them the best deal possible. Like, if I have a buyer, I want them to walk into as much equity as possible.
Right.
You're in a multi-offer situation. They really want the house. Maybe we lost the first or the second house through a multi-offer. It's like, you don't want to have to keep going through that process. So, you have to maybe get a little bit more aggressive, or you have to get more strategic. And the cool thing about real estate, everything is negotiable. So I just think there's some things that I do that I make sure there's not gaps in my game.
Yeah.
So a couple examples would be, I call every single agent whenever I put an offer in. And people would say, of course, why wouldn't you? I can't tell you how many times I'll just get an email. I'll never hear from somebody, and I'll get an offer on one of my listings. And to me, it's like, you're setting the tone for how much work or effort you're willing to put in for your client. Another thing I do is we write a letter to anytime we put an offer in on a house, we write a letter on why we want the house. We try to create an emotional connection with that person.
Because that's what it is, right? I mean,
exactly.
This isn't like commercial real estate where it's like, okay, I'm buying a building for my office. This is where you might raise your family, or it's your first home, or it's your last home or if it's your transition, or, whatever's happening in your life. There's emotional attachments to basically where you live your life.
And not everybody cares, but a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And what's the harm in doing it, right? So there's just certain things that I like to do. And then, if we can be strategic through those conversations, what really matters most to your buyer or to your seller? So if I can, obviously the price point matters, right? But outside of that, like what matters? Is it the closing date? Is it, the due diligence period? Is it because if there's things that don't matter as much to us, but they matter to them, then let's just put a win-win together and everybody feels great about it.
We've been in this house 6 years, and the house that we sold was off of Carmel and Johnson in South Charlotte. First home we bought in 07. Same type of situation, right? My first job out of college, Lindsay's first job out of college. We weren't even married. We go to the bank. The bank was like, $250,000 loan. We were like, okay, what would that be in a mortgage? We're like, no way. That's more than we make in a month. But we sold that house, and the thing that we did that I thought was creative with our realtor at that time was we wrote, not only do we have like the flyers and everything when people walked in, the booklets, but we also had 10 things that why we like this house. Like, what are the 10 things in and around this house that we like? And it was basically the neighborhood. You walked out of the neighborhood and across the street was the entrance to the Greenway. So it's like, if you're into running on the Greenway, there's that. We're close to shopping. We're close to so there's all these things that we put on that list of like trying to create that emotional connection of, well, what did we love about the house and why might you love the house? You might not connect to all of them, but there might be one in there that goes, okay, that's what I was looking for.
Right.
And so that's interesting, that creativity around creating some type of emotional bond to a house.
Yeah, we in the way I learned it is really early on. We a couple months in, I put an offer in for somebody they wanted to buy an investment property, and we put a great offer in, and we lost it. And I called the agent. I'm like, how the heck do we lose this offer? She said the other person wrote a note, and the seller connected to it. It's just like, oh man. So I was like, well, that's not going to happen again, ever, right? And so just last night I put an offer in for somebody. We were walking through the house, beautiful little starter home, nice backyard, all this stuff. But you walk through the house and you can kind of tell how the owners are living in it. And it was probably a young family that's growing. Well, my clients are a young couple, recently moved to the area, recently married, and want to start a family. And so it's like, I'm sure there's some connections there, right?
Yeah, right.
That's where they started their family. They're moving on to probably something bigger or that's going to, help them get to the next stage of their family. And now, my client is a young family, essentially probably going to do somewhat the same thing. So anyways, those are just some things that I do. But I will say this about the negotiation piece. A lot of people think it has to be contentious. And I think it could be further from the truth. I think the best deals that I've ever been a part of is where I'm working with another great agent. They're crystal clear on what their clients' expectations are. I'm crystal clear on what mine are. And we let our egos, both agents, get their egos out of the way. And they say, my buyer wants to buy something. Your seller wants to sell something. Let's figure out a way to make this work. Right. I think those are the best.
Well, I think, again, we go back to, and I brought it up earlier, the perception of real estate agents from what we see on TV.
Yeah.
The negotiation, nothing's fun about watching two people get along and get a negotiation done. Like, that doesn't create good television.
Right.
Good television is two realtors going head to head and creating a lot of drama around something and showing that they care more about their client than the other person cares about their client type thing, right? It's that it is creating that contentious atmosphere, and it's like, man, that's what I want to do in real estate. I would much rather have a situation like you're describing, where it's like, all right, I know what you need, you know what I need. What can we do to get this thing done?
Right.
Like, let's throw the BS out the window. Let's figure out what we can do to get this deal done.
Right.
Because it's in everyone's best interest, that type of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't always go that way. I'm not going to say they all go that way, but it's like, hey, now at the end of the day, our job is we have a fiduciary responsibility to our client, so we absolutely have to, whatever they tell us from a negotiation, like, we have to follow.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you can't educate them around, all right, hey, like if you really want to hold firm on this, we potentially, and they don't want to agree to it, we potentially lose it. And that means we're at the back at the starting board. So like, or starting block. So you have to make a decision whether or not what level of value you put on potentially going back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was just in one a couple last Monday where it was like me and the other agent were communicating very well together, but we also had to like draw a line in the sand. And like, I was like, hey, we need 10,000 more. Like, it's not negotiable. We're not signing anything. And it wasn't comfortable for me to have that conversation, but my job isn't to be comfortable. My job is to represent what my clients want. Yeah. So anyways, but I do enjoy it.
Yeah. What's been, and I don't even know if you might not be able to answer it because just how many transactions. Is there any like particular transaction or sale or house in particular that's been your favorite? You don't need to name the neighborhood or the person or anything like that, but like, is there any particular like person or anything that just stands out?
Of course you want to like gravitate towards like, oh, I listed the house and I got 12 offers in 24 hours and I've been blessed. Like that's happened.
Yeah.
Man, I think one of the things I really enjoyed was, I've had a couple situations where I've been in multi-offer and we've either gotten the house for less than list price, or I've had my people walk into equity.
Oh, wow.
And I just think, and especially, and I've worked with people at all stages in their buying careers, like first-time home buyers, and then people that are pretty savvy in terms of they've been around the block.
Been doing it, yeah.
And going back to kind of my story about how I got great advice for my first home, and it's helped me throughout. I've been a couple multi-offers for first-time home buyers, and when they get an appraisal back at 10 grand more than they buying the home for, and it was a multi-offer and it's less than like. That's, I don't know. Those things kind of stick out to me.
That's a win.
Yeah, it's a huge win.
Yeah. I want to hit on the tax.
Oh, that's fun stuff.
I think it obviously hit Charlotte this week. So Charlotte, Mecklenburg, the county of Mecklenburg that we live in, did a tax evaluation. You have to do it for the state of North Carolina. You have to do it every 8 years.
Octennial schedule. Correct?
Yep. So the last time we did it was 2011. So it just came out. And the way that Charlotte is, if you don't live in Charlotte or you're not familiar with Charlotte is you open that right in front of the mic, man. It's an incredible sound when you open a beer in front of a microphone. Charlotte is a growing city. On average, it's like 70 people move here a day, something like that, right?
Charlotte, yeah. Yep.
Charlotte proper.
Correct.
Right. Mecklenburg and all the other surrounding counties. So it's a large city that continues to grow. I think we're the 16th largest city in the United States now.
Correct.
Something like that. I've lived here since 99. In 99, we weren't like this.
No.
Where my parents' house is in Blakeney Shopping Center didn't exist.
Right.
Like, we moved in this neighborhood, and I'm like, we live in the damn country. Like, we're in the middle of nowhere. But Charlotte is a large and growing metropolitan area that has always been, since I've lived here in 99, a very competitive area. I even said it in the recession. The recession hit Charlotte because of the financial institutions, but it never really got crushed like a lot of these other cities. Like, it was still growing at the time.
Yeah, you know why? Because the banks were laying off permanent headcount and backfilling them with contract headcount. So if you worked at big bank number one, as a permanent person, you got laid off, you would walk across the street to big bank number two and as a contractor, and in some cases making more on an hourly basis, right?
Without some of the benefits,
right?
But that's fine.
But yeah, and have a job. So not to derail the conversation, but that is part of the reason I do believe we didn't get.
Why didn't we get killed, right?
Correct, yeah.
So in the 8 years since 2011, since the last time we did it, Charlotte has just continued to grow, and neighborhoods have continued to grow, and neighborhoods that were less desirable 8 years ago. You mentioned where your office is in South End. I worked next to your office. I worked in that building, the 2-story building.
Yep.
I worked for a construction company there. And when I worked there, we had the gate and everything that would open and close after hours. And,
Yep.
you would leave that area because it was a very industrial and low-income area.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward to 2018, it's basically the fastest-growing neighborhood around, right? South End is incredible. And all these surrounding areas, Old Charlotte, gentrification is happening. So yesterday or 2 days ago?
2 days ago, I think,
2 days
right?
ago, the city gave out the evaluations of your house. My house, desirable area of town. I've lived here 6 years. Our tax went up over $100,000, which actually isn't horrible from a overall payment
Right.
perspective. But I heard that there are some neighborhoods that were like $250,000 to $400,000 differences from when it was in 2011. Now, as a realtor, I want your opinion on this. Is this a good thing for real estate? Take the people out of it, because everyone wants to hold on to the emotional attachment of the person that's lived in this house for 60 years. For the city of Charlotte and for real estate, is what happened 2 days ago good for the city? Good for the market?
Man, I'm not. I am always one. I'm pretty risk averse in making proclamations, so I probably will say time will tell. So I live in one of those neighborhoods where our number went up exponentially.
You live in a neighborhood that I'm sure got.
And so our number, we were like, oh my God. Now, here's the thing: we knew it was coming, and so, but it was still sticker shock, because when you're looking at your tax assessed value versus your appraised value, we have been seeing for 8 years our appraised value going up, but our assessed value staying the same because it was assessed 8 years ago.
Yep.
And so it's kind of like you can't have your cake and eat it too. Am I somebody that just like, hey, let's just start throwing out cash and am I somebody super excited about taxes going up? No. But at the same time, we also enjoy a lot of, you see what's happening in the Charlotte area and in the market, and the public transportation. I mean, we're turning into a big city, and so like, what do? I mean, you can't complain about the roads and the bridges, but then in the schools, but then not be willing to pay more, and so the cost for everything is going up. So I think quite honestly, and I've been starting to do some research on it. I think the assessment process, there probably were some gaps.
Yeah.
And I don't know how, to what level of due diligence the county had the resources and the ability to properly and accurately assess every single property. And I think there's probably plenty of people that have legitimate reasons to dispute what their number is. But ultimately, I mean, we can't continue to expect a higher standard, need a higher standard, but then put the same amount of money in the coffer, because that's just not realistic. So
as a citizen of Charlotte and Mecklenburg, what I want to see now is, because this came out, I want to see improvements in the school.
Right.
And I want to see improvements in infrastructure, because if you, just being in commercial construction before my current job, you see it, and I look at it every day. This city's growing, and our infrastructure from you talked about, like, public transportation, our highways, everything, they're all undersized. And when I moved here in '99, everyone said we are Atlanta 20 years ago, and that's kind of held true. Like in '99,
Right.
we were Atlanta of what Atlanta was the 20 years previous, and continuous. The last thing I want to do is live in Atlanta type, to where it's constant traffic, our infrastructure is terrible, we've outgrown what we have, and ultimately Charlotte is like that. So what I do want to see is when we have things like this, I want to see that money go to those things and those improvements.
Right. Exactly. I think that's the big thing too. So like, I've been fortunate to be participant in a couple different panels and things of that nature, and I've had a chance to listen to a lot of city leaders and people that are on a lot of these different planning committees. And one of the things that is just our water. Like one really big concern is our ability to provide sustainable, have a sustainable system, water system to provide to people because of what we currently have, and so or what we currently have in place. So, yeah, to your point though, it's got to be we have to start. If we're going to do this, we've got to see the improvements.
Yeah, because I think that's what everyone's concern is.
Right.
Is all right, great. It's going to raise taxes. That's fine as long as we see something out of it. I think most people, as long as it's not drastic, most people can put some of their differences aside from a political perspective and say, okay, if taxes are necessary, that's fine, but I want to see something.
Right. What's the plan?
What is it?
Right.
And it's concerning in a city like ours, a growing city, that there are times where the city will come out and be like, well, we didn't really, like 485 around the city. I remember because where I live, it's a 2-lane highway. And the city came out and said, well, we never expected the growth to be what it was.
Right.
It's like, do you not have forecasts of like what's happening, right? Like for the city to come out and say something like that, it was like, oh my gosh, like, oh boy, who do we have in charge here that they didn't see it coming? It's been happening year over year. It's not like this just like overnight, hundreds of thousands of people moved here in one fell swoop. So I wanted your opinion on it because it is something that happened over the last couple of days. And it can happen in any city, right? So
for sure. And just so you guys know, like now we are on an octennial schedule every 8 years. Well, now it's going to go to we'll have another one in 4 years.
Oh, really?
And
okay.
After that, it'll be every 2 years.
Oh, okay.
So this isn't
the end.
Right. By the done, in 6 years, by the time you're done complaining about it going up, the new one will be out.
Yeah.
So
interesting. I didn't know it was going to happen every 4 and then 2. Okay.
Yeah. So the next one is going to be in 4 years, and then after that, it'll be every 2 years. And so, yeah, I don't know. We're certainly not stoked that our taxes went up.
Yeah. Right.
And we're going to dive in. And I will say this, as a realtor, one of the things that we can do is we have access to a ton of information because we have really good tools through the MLS that where we can get very, very specific information on communities, on neighborhoods, on complexes, on subdivisions, and we could break it down by price point and all that. And so I would encourage anybody, if they've got a great relationship with a realtor and they're concerned about what number they saw, maybe ask for some information that could either support the number they got or help them dispute the number they got.
Yeah.
So I know that's something that I've offered to a couple people because we have a module inside of the MLS that really allows us to get some good granular information. And
the neighborhoods around the city definitely got.
Yeah, we got crushed.
You got hammered. We're further out, so but we knew it was going to be something.
Right.
But yeah, you guys, I'm sure got.
Well, here's the other thing too: is your value. Like you can't. I mean, you can. I'm not going to tell people what to think, but you want your value of your home to go up.
Yeah.
You gotta, you know what I mean? It's like, well, here's a letter that says your house is now worth $100,000 more, or whatever X amount more. So it's like you might be paying more in annual taxes, but the value of your home is going up. That's not a bad thing from a big picture, big picture perspective.
Especially if you're in a market of potentially selling, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna do a couple of quick fire questions for you. I'm gonna just. Normally I have them written down, but this time I'm just going to go off the top of my head.
Okay.
And then quick answers, and then we'll finish up with anything else that we didn't touch on that you might want to talk about, because this is your time. And then you mentioned it earlier downstairs. If there's any questions that you have for me, you can certainly ask me questions. I have the right, though, not to answer them. You don't.
There we go.
All right. Favorite neighborhood in Charlotte?
I'm biased. I live in Sedgefield.
Okay, so Sedgefield. Favorite steakhouse anywhere?
Oh, you had to go there.
Because you got New York in you, so...
Oh, man.
What's the best steakhouse you've eaten at?
I've been in some good ones.
You ever been to Peter Luger's in Brooklyn?
I have not, no.
Oh, God, it's so good. Only take debit or check.
Here's the thing. I don't remember the name of the steakhouse. It was in Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
And I'm kicking myself right now. And
Is it in downtown? Where is
it was
it in?
downtown Seattle. And we got this bone-in tomahawk ribeye that just absolutely knocked my socks. And I cannot remember. And I remember exactly who I was with. And I was at the point where I wanted to I wanted to cut every morsel of beef off that bone. I mean,
So my brother lives in Seattle. So
Yeah.
Chad or my sister-in-law Liz, if you're listening, we need to find a steakhouse in downtown Seattle that
Yeah.
has a bone-in tomahawk
ribeye,
in downtown.
downtown Seattle. Yep.
All right, and if they
Yeah.
find that, I'll text you it, and we'll.
Because I used to go up to Bellevue a lot
Okay.
for work, but I would sometimes stay in downtown. Yeah, so I know Seattle's kind of segmented
Yep.
that way. It's not like,
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyways.
All right. Coffee or tea?
Oh, coffee all day.
All right. What's your favorite beer?
Labatt Blue Light.
So, because you're from upstate New York,
Yes.
I know that it's such a big thing up there. So, one of my best friends, Preston, is from Red Creek, New
Okay.
York.
Yep.
Guy loves Labatt.
Ah.
Loves it. Father-in-law, interviewed him a couple weeks ago, talks about Labatt, like how it's just a staple up there, but it's a Canadian beer because you guys are so close to the Canadian border.
Yeah.
It's just there in, droves.
I mean, it'd be right next. It'd be between the Bud Light and the Coors Light, and you just get the Labatt Blue Light, little bit higher octane, and just clean, crisp. And if you need 1 or 20, you've got options.
Favorite brewery in Charlotte?
Oh man,
I feel like you're going to be the first person to answer this differently than anybody else. He's thinking about this.
Yeah.
This is
because I do take my craft beer seriously.
Yeah.
And there's things I like about a lot of them, but I probably would say. Probably say Noda. I just like their
You're
beer.
the first person on this podcast. I've done 20. You're my 23rd
Yeah.
episode. You're the first person that I've asked that question to that did not answer Old Mech.
Oh, really?
Everybody has answered Old Mech.
I love Old Mech's setup probably better than anybody else's.
Well, they have the best setup because it's just the
the
largest.
space, yeah. But
It's my favorite brewery.
Is
And
it?
it's everybody that's been on the show, favorite brewery. Favorite brewery for multiple reasons. I like the fact that, and not to take against your answer.
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
answer's great. Noda, gold in American IPA
Yep.
3 or 4 years ago for the Hop, Drop, and Roll. Like the biggest at the Great American Beer Festival in Denver. And it's like the biggest category, the IPAs. Great beer, a lot of variety. But what I like about Old Mech is that out of all the breweries around and anywhere you go, they're unique.
They are.
German style
They
beer.
are.
You cannot go there.
No,
And I know
right.
a lot of the bartenders there and everything. Their biggest pet peeve is when people walk in and go, what IPA do you have? And they're like, we're a German
yeah.
style. We don't have IPAs. Or it's like, I want a Red Bull vodka. We're like, we're not a bar. Like,
Yep.
but setup wise, the outside with kids, it's fantastic, dude. I can go there on a Saturday or a Sunday and let the kids run around, and I get a couple pints of beer.
Yep.
I haven't been to the new Noda.
Yeah, it's cool.
Is it?
Yeah. Well, and I was reading the Business Journal a couple weeks ago, and Marino, I think Steve Marino is the owner that started OMB. I think
John.
John. My
Yep.
bad. Yeah, John. But he was nominated CEO of the year by the Business Journal.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and the story behind how he started, and
It's incredible,
It's pretty
right?
cool. Yeah, it's
So
really cool.
he
yeah,
lived in Germany,
yep,
in this town, moved to Charlotte. When he started the brewery in Charlotte, he went and took the purity laws from that town, because in Germany, each town basically has their own recipes and types of beer that they specialize in.
Yep.
And so OMB specializes in those beers from that town, basically, and their ingredients and all that.
yeah. And you know what was really cool about his story was the fact that he just was like, wait a second, there's a ton of people moving to Charlotte, and there isn't one of these here, right?
Yeah.
And so just to have the audacity to say, there's not anything else that looks like it, and we're going to start it, and just assume or hope or think that people are. And hey, they kudos to them. I mean, and to your point, we bring the kids. It's awesome. I mean, live music a lot of times.
Yep.
So, anyways,
It's a good time.
Yeah.
All right. Number one goal for 2019 for you. Doesn't have to be for
Yeah.
flat bill. Doesn't have to be for real estate. What's your number one goal?
this year, I want to. Man, there's a couple things because I write down my goals every year, and typically they're related to business and like specific number here,
Yeah.
specific number there. This year, I really want to build a team.
Okay. Yeah.
And I want to build a team and still stay unique to what we're doing and how I'm doing it, and see how that evolves. But yeah, to build a team this year.
Cool. If you are Brian Cashman
Yes.
of the New York Yankees, the GM of the New York Yankees,
Yes.
and you had your choice between Manny Machado or Bryce Harper, who are you signing?
Oh man. I'd probably say Harper. We just don't need more infielders, and personally, I don't think we do. Tulowitzki could probably provide some leadership, and,
As long as he stays healthy.
right, and even if he doesn't, but I think Harper, you could put at first base eventually if you needed to. I think he's, I don't know, he doesn't like. Yeah, he's got the bravado and all that around him, but I mean, Manny's done some cheap stuff that I don't think is gonna fly in
Put a
pinstripes.
left-handed power hitter like Harper in New York in Yankee Stadium.
Yahtzee.
Dude's going to hit 45 home runs.
Yeah.
Easily.
I mean, and so if you're going to spend the cash, I don't personally think we need either of them.
They're not going to go after either one.
Yeah.
I don't think. I think we're too far into it now.
Yeah, I think pitching is more important at this point, especially like look at the lineup we have.
I
I
know.
mean, I don't think power is going to be our problem.
No, power's not the
Right.
problem. A pitching staff, we've addressed that, which is good. And the left side of the infield with Tulo and LeMahieu, and I think we're good. But it has been a topic of conversation all offseason of where are those two going to land. So if you were the GM, you would go with Harper.
I'd go with Harper. I would, and I think there's a lot to like about Manny, but I just and then what do you do? World Series,
Yeah, he
like.
stepped on the foot.
Well, and then he's jogging around bases.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, I don't know. I just don't have a tolerance for that, really. But I'd be happy to have him if they wanted him.
Say the Padres are in for him now. I saw that yesterday.
It makes sense. I mean,
Well, they need somebody.
bring a name.
But if you're Manny Machado, why would you want to go to another? Not to be, if anyone from San Diego is listening, but why would you want to go to another loser?
Right.
That's why he wanted out of Baltimore so badly. They suck.
I think that depends on what your objectives are. If winning a ring and just being a champion is like what I want to do, then you probably make one decision. If living in San Diego on a
Look, I'm not turning down
$200
San
million
Diego.
contract is like,
Well, I'm not going to turn that down
Yeah,
at all. But
yeah,
still,
no.
All right. Last question: upstate New York or New York City?
oh man. Well, it just depends because I think if it's the old 80-20 rule, 80% of the time upstate, 20% of the time city. I love the city and there's so much to go see, enjoy, and partake in. But city to me is kind of like Vegas to me.
Yeah.
Like 3 days, good. Because I'm from upstate, so it's not like I have family and friends and deep roots. But man, catching a ball game or a great food or a show or just going up for work or something like that. Like I think a good 3-day trip into the city, you cannot beat it.
I was going to
anywhere
say,
in the
for
world.
work, it is my favorite city
Yeah.
to travel to because it is nice. Go in there 2-3 days, knock things out, but then you leave and you're exhausted because it's like it is that constant,
Yep.
everything always in motion, and
Yeah.
there's so much to do, and just the stimulation around it wears you down. And then you come back to Charlotte or, in this question, upstate, and it's kind of that you can take a breath and get back into routine, and it allows you to not have to be, on at all times. Love New York City, but yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else that we have not touched on that you wanted to accomplish today?
Oh man, I don't think so. I mean, you asked a lot of really good questions, and I always like when I need to think about things versus just given, whatever.
The easy answer.
Yeah, the easy answer. So I don't know that there's anything I didn't really touch on. I definitely appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about FlatBill and my real estate business and in Charlotte in general. And yeah, I mean,
what's next for FlatBill? Is there anywhere people? Because I know you had some speaking engagements that you did with in concert with who was it?
Oh, Nate Sally, the Audible
Nate
coach.
Sally, yeah, the Audible coach.
So we're gonna do some more stuff this year.
Okay.
And so one of the things I do like to do is, again, just a way to bring value is help people, educate them around how to build a plan, because so many of us, whether it's at the beginning of the year, the middle of the year, or the end of the year, we have goals, we have ambitions, we have dreams, and what we end up doing is maybe taking that first step, but because we don't have a plan, we don't understand how to manage and work towards the milestones within the big goal, we get demoralized, we get defeated, and we just don't do it. And so what Nate and I did is we teamed up to really teach people, all right, hey, what's your big goal? What's that big vision? What's that thing you want to do? And then how do we, like I said earlier, how do we reverse engineer down to what you need to do on a day-to-day basis? And there's two things that I think are critical to achieving a goal. It's once you know what it is, and that is writing it down and communicating it. Because I know for myself, I have big goals, and I've always had them, but for the longest time, I never wrote them down. And then once I started writing them down, I realized there's an increased level of accountability once you write something down.
You're 40% more likely to accomplish a goal or a task if you write it down.
Yeah. So
40% more.
And so then, exactly. And then if you write it down and then if you communicate it, then the accountability goes way up. Because now other people, if I tell you my goal is to build a team, right? And we don't talk for 6 months and we talk again, you're like, how's the team?
How's the team? Yeah.
Right? Well, now I'm more accountable to building a team because I expressed that my number one goal is to build a team.
Yep.
Right. So I just think those things and in doing those things and writing them down and communicating them, what it does for people is it gives them it starts to give them confidence, and it starts to get you. So that's a really long answer to the question. We're going to continue to host more events and teach people, and it's not just a business goal. It could be a life goal. It could be a fitness goal. It could be any sort of goal, or it could be a business goal. But it could be any sort of goal. It's like, what do I really need to do? If it's that important to you, you'll take 45 minutes or an hour to really, I guess, learn.
Do you guys have the venue set and date set, or are you working?
We
through all
don't.
that?
I think we've got venues set. We've got to lock down some dates, and we're also going to do stuff on Facebook. Like we're going to Facebook Live our events and do different things.
Okay.
So want to make it as accessible as possible.
So then, over the next couple weeks, months, just follow Steve.
Yeah. And
you'll be putting that up on your social media so people can figure out what it is, if they want to join, and where and what time.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else that I miss?
No, I think we're good.
We got everything covered. Okay, because this is your time for you. Again, people can find you at FlatBill_. I want to make sure because it's not FlatBill Friday. At FlatBill_Friday on Instagram, and then FlatBill Friday on Facebook
and YouTube.
And
it
YouTube.
really annoys me, the guy per chance and the 1 in whatever % chance that whoever owns the FlatBill Friday Instagram account that has 6 followers and no posts, I've DM'd you 20 times. He
won't give it to you? He won't answer?
Hasn't responded yet.
Well, it's because he never gets on, apparently, because he only has 6 followers and 0 posts.
I'm like, come on, man. Like, I'm doing something here, but
it's going to be some bot.
Probably. Yeah. That's probably exactly what it is.
And then website, flatbillfriday.com. Any questions for me?
I'll be honest with you, in the spirit of authenticity, I have a couple, but I have to use the restroom.
Go for it.
All right.
We'll be right back. All right, we're back. All right, so you got to go, but quick questions.
So guests in Charlotte, if there's a guest in Charlotte that you can have, like, what would be the ideal?
Guests in Charlotte, I don't think I have an ideal guest in Charlotte. What I want is people that come on here and again are vulnerable and have a good story to tell, because I want to be able to have my listeners connect to something that they've talked about. It might not be a whole conversation, right? You might turn this thing off after 20 minutes or 30 minutes.
Right.
But if in that 20, 30 minutes or that whole episode, if there's something that people can connect to because it's a real person, look, I invite people over to my house, right? Like there might be people that I have no idea who they are, and I'm going to bring them to my house. I want you to be real with me because I didn't bring you into my house and introduce you to my kids for you to come on here and bullshit with me. So do I have anybody in particular? Look, I think it'd be cool. Steph Curry, right?
Yeah.
I went to the same high school as him, but that's, whatever. Charlotte-wise, no. I just want people that can come in and talk about the city and their story, and it's interesting.
Yeah. The reason I asked that is because I think I brought it up earlier. Like, I just believe in the law of reciprocity, and it's funny how when you can help other people, if and I'm not assuming that I can, but if you can help people and add value to them, how I just feel like the law of reciprocity in the universe kind of takes care of you. So, I guess in terms of starting a podcast or doing something like that, because that's something else I've thought about this year.
Yep.
What advice would you have for me or anybody out there that like, hey, I love the idea of doing something this genuine, this cool?
I would tell you the same advice that I got told when I started this. So I reached out to a couple people that have podcasts, and I asked them, I said, look, I've been thinking about it. What would, and I'm not sure if I want to stay on one category or if what is your suggestion to it? And everybody's suggestion to me was, first off, don't worry about categories. Don't put yourself into one category. If you're not sure that you can fill a time slot or whatever it is with the one topic week in and week out, don't. Talk about whatever you want to talk about, because here's the thing. There are plenty of people out there that are going to listen because they just enjoy hearing people's stories. And that's what I mentioned earlier about people that I want on. I just want some people to come on and have interesting stories. And I get a lot of, well, I don't really know what to talk about. I don't have that interesting story. And those people are usually the most interesting because they don't think their story is that interesting. And yet once they start opening up and talking about it, they actually have lived a very complete life, or something has impacted them that actually stays with them, and they're able to now talk about it. So starting a podcast, I would say do it. You can do it very low cost, where if you have a phone, you can get a host site like mine is Podbean. You can directly record from their app from your phone if you want, or you can go extravagant and buy thousands of dollars of equipment, or you buy middle of the line equipment. There's a little bit of investment there, but the best advice I can give you is if you want to start a podcast, do it. Because guess what? You can always sell the equipment again. Right. Like all of this equipment came from eBay. I can put it right back on eBay and sell it again because somebody else is going to start a podcast. Right. I mentioned it to you earlier. 630,000 podcasts out there today. That's and crazy. Growing. So why not? It's almost like the business of, I have one as well. Like, yeah, I have that same company, IT recruiting. Oh yeah, me too. I do that too. Podcasting. Yeah, I do that too. Everyone has a podcast nowadays. So why not just have yours? And you can talk about whatever you want, right? Mm-hmm. It's just another medium to attract people. And it's global.
Yeah, that's what I think is so cool.
Like for you today, for FlatBill, like there's going to be people in New Zealand and India and the Philippines and Spain and Sweden that are hearing your story and potentially might go to your website or might look at your profile, and not from a real estate perspective, but from what you were talking about, your mission for FlatBill Friday, that might now transcend to a global audience. So why not try and do that for the new year?
That'd be a big team.
But no, I'm just talking about reaching a different type of audience, right?
Yep, totally.
Because I didn't seek these people out. I have no idea how they found this, but they listen to it regularly. So
that's sweet.
It's a long answer, but
yeah. I know. Hey, man, I'm excited. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I really appreciate the opportunity, and this has been super cool. A lot of fun, and definitely I always appreciate a new
Yeah.
experience.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and giving your 2 cents worth on the real estate area and market and Charlotte in general and your brand. And again, I think you have a very unique way of presenting your brand and utilizing basically like a piece of apparel as the basis of it, but that's not all of it, right? Like,
It's just a symbol.
that is just a symbol, and the meaning of it, and the organizations that you help represent and contribute to. I think you mentioned it earlier. You just want to be a good citizen. I think you're a good citizen, man. I think what you're doing for this and for the brand and for Madeline's Fund, job well done.
Thank you.
All right, is that it? Anything else?
I'm good, man. No, but thank you so much.
FlatBill Friday, Steve Lonnen, local realtor, North and South Carolina. Anywhere else you represent, or just North and South Carolina?
Well, if you need a good agent up in Rochester, New York, I can hook you up there.
Okay, well, there you go. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Steve. We'll be in touch.
Thank
Bye.
you.